Welcome back to Independent Blazers. I'm Dan,
I'm Joe.
and today we're going to talk more about life in Thailand.
Subscribe, share, bang the notification bell. That helps you, that helps us. And today we're going to talk about, as Dan eloquently mentioned, the realities of living in Thailand. Even though Thailand has a lot of good, there's also some challenges. And Dan, how do you want to start this one off?
Okay, start with economics. People say things like, well, if I have so much money, like $100 or $1,000, I can live so well. No, not really. And for another, some things are more expensive in Thailand than in Western countries, such as a car and international schools. And by the way, if you're a foreigner and you want to enroll your kids in a Thai public school, forget it.
I've said this in past videos. Thailand can be as cheap as you want it to be and as expensive as you want it to be. And for example, number one, you have to figure out where do you want to live? That can also determine your economic situation. If you want to live in Isan, for example,
Where is Isan, Joe? Tell them where Isan is.
it's in the northeast Thailand, I believe.
And that's among the least developed of places, and it's the
Right.
cost of living is very low there.
And believe it or not, foreigners do live there. They like the rural community. It's not for me.
They often they meet a woman who's originally from there, and they move there. And some places are developed and do cater to foreigners, such as Udon Thani and Khon Kaen. But overall, most of Isan is quite rural. And when you go, if you look anything like Joe or I do, you're going to stick out like a sore thumb.
Right. When people think of Thailand, they probably think of cocktails, the beach, partying, maybe even elephants, the Thais, the land of smiles, the friendly demeanor. And that's all there. It's all here, I should say. It's all here. But there is some tough realities. And the first thing I'm going to mention, Dan, is it is economics. And I'll speak from a U.S. perspective. On average, the cost of living is 47% less in Thailand than in the U.S. right now. But that is radically changing. And Dan, can you give some reasons how it's radically changing?
For one thing, a lot of people are starting to move there. Another thing, they're investing, and therefore things are getting more expensive. But Thailand is also developing a lot. It's modernizing quite rapidly, especially places like Bangkok and
Right.
Pattaya.
Um, like if you're gonna and look, I don't really drink, so I know people that do. If you're going out in Nana Plaza, for example, or Phuket, and
Yeah.
you're gonna drink a beer, it's the same as a U.S. The same cost as a beer in the United States, or in England, or in Australia. Especially if you're hanging out in the touristy areas, the cost is gonna be the same. Don't think you're gonna come here on $1,000 a month, and you're gonna go out and party every night. I'm telling you, it's not. It's not gonna happen.
No, it's not. And by the way, speaking of cost of living, the cost of living in Phuket is way different than in Chiang Mai or
Right.
Isan.
Yes. If you live outside of Bangkok, or I should say, out of the tourist areas in Bangkok, things get considerably cheaper. You can get a place for, say, 300 US dollars, 10,000 Thai baht, and you could have AC and a pool and even security in some of the buildings. The rent overall is a lot cheaper, yes, but if you have a lot of money, you can get that high-rise condo or that huge house for 2,000 a month. They do exist in Thailand. Not everything is third world over here.
Oh, absolutely not. Oh, and by the way, though, you cannot own a house 100% if you're a
No,
foreigner.
you can't own the land. That's true.
You,
You can't own the land.
there are ways to get around it, but they're very, very, very difficult.
Yeah,
And 49 is the law. I mean,
and
it inconveniences me. I have to admit, I understand it because foreigners from all over the world would flock there, and Thais wouldn't be able to afford to live there.
now you can buy a condo. You can own a condo outright. Now the
Yes.
land, there's ways to get around it, but you have to get a lawyer. It has to be done legally, proper documentation. One of the advantages of Thailand is no property tax as of this video. So if you own a condo, you pay condo association fee, but you don't have the burden of property tax.
Right. And there are some other realities too. People who go there for, what, 2 weeks, they see the beaches and all, and they think, oh, why doesn't everyone live here? If you're going to work, beach towns are not it because there aren't many opportunities for employment there. And in addition, the weather's not like that all year round. The low season, which is the rainy season, there aren't many good days to go to the beach.
Right. And once again, it depends where you want to live in Thailand. Bangkok is not for everyone. Living in rural Isan is not for everyone. Some people like the mountains. Some people want to live in Chiang Mai. And which Chiang Mai is cheaper than Bangkok overall. Or Huahin, a very quiet, small beach town. And Pattaya, which does have its partying areas, where I'm at right now. But it also has a lot of quiet areas, believe it or not. It offers an array of things. I like being by the water, so I like the quality of air better.
Right. If you live in the mountains certain times of the year, you're not going to do well. Most people associate living in the mountains with clean air, but certain months of the year the reality is just the opposite. Because slash and burn not only within Thailand but from other countries. And so people escape the mountains just to have cleaner air. And we're here just to tell you about certain realities of living there, but we're not discouraging people by any means. There's a reason why I love living in Thailand more than anywhere else. There's
Right.
multiple reasons, really.
Yes, of course, but there is some challenges, and not everyone here can be a digital nomad. Finding a good paying job can be difficult. Look,
Visas are a major problem.
well, touching the job thing for a second, if you're not working for a multinational corporation or a big Thai company, the salaries can be very, very. And the problem is, especially if you're probably in an area like Bangkok, you're working, and it's not getting Bangkok. Again, is not getting cheaper. It's gotten a little more expensive.
Oh, yeah.
So Thailand is a protectionist society, and again, I understand why they are. They don't want the Thais being overran. There's only a certain amount of jobs. Their economy is sluggish right now, so they want to make sure their population doesn't get overran. It is called Thailand for a reason because it's Thailand. So you
Right.
have to understand that.
And there's certain jobs you cannot take as a foreigner, no matter how qualified you are. You can't take blue collar jobs. For example, even if you wanted to work as a taxi driver or cut hair or work in a factory as just an average worker, you cannot do that. They do not like hiring
Right.
foreigners of any kind to do things that Thais can do themselves.
Absolutely. And again, they hire you as a teacher. Even that's getting tougher in certain senses. The money for teaching is in international schools.
That's right.
Um, if you want to
That's right.
get paid well and get benefits, a lot of semi-retired guys teach in the Thai schools, teach English because it's the money's not as much, but it gives them something to do, and maybe some just want to get a visa, and the work permit requirement can be very tough here.
It
So
is. People think they're just going to go over, say, oh, yeah, I'll find a job in a week and then I'll have a work permit. They'll do it all for me. No. I know this firsthand. Even if you get a job and relatively easily, the visa and work permit and all that, there's a ton of bureaucracy. You have to do things like leave the country, go to an embassy or consulate abroad, maybe in Laos or Malaysia or other countries. Wait a while then. I had to wait about 2 weeks once and then come back, and it's not an easy process.
right,
Thailand definitely wants you. If you're a tourist, they want you all the way. If you want to be a student there, an international student, oh, they'll take you in a heartbeat. If you want to work there and live there, it's a lot more difficult. And I'm speaking from experience.
right. So that they're speaking of that, at least to dating. Um, Dating, but keep in mind, a lot of people love the Thai lady, and look, the Thai lady is lovely. They have wonderful, they're beautiful. A lot of them have beautiful personalities. But keep in mind, there are cultural differences that you have to deal with.
Yeah, that's
Remember,
right.
Corporately, Thais are not confrontational people. Okay,
No.
uh, us Americans and Westerners, we're a little more in your face, a little more confrontational. Where Thais are not, and there's cultural differences. And this next statement, don't take this the wrong way, folks. If you think you're gonna get a wife out of a bar, I'm not saying it's impossible. It's been done before.
It has, but it's typically not where you find wives.
Right.
You find,
Statistically, yeah, it's
I mean,
not good.
people who hook up in dance clubs and places like that, they're not living in reality. I mean, each of the other. What Thai women also who look for husbands in those places, they don't realize that those foreigners who go to those clubs are often tourists. They're for maybe a couple of weeks and are having fun, and then they're going to leave. I've seen it happen so many times.
And again, I'm not saying people haven't been successful. I know a few that have. But believe me, the people I've been in Thailand, living here and traveling here, there's a lot more horror stories than success stories in the bar, picking up a wife in a bar. Look, and if you have, God bless you. I'm not saying it's impossible, but statistically, it seems to me, from my personal experience, it seems harder. Like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, it seems a lot harder.
Oh, yeah. And speaking of which, also, don't go getting into fights either. I know it sounds like, well, quote unquote, common sense, but no. Sometimes people, you will get challenged on occasion. And it's not a good idea, not only because you're a foreigner, I mean, which jeopardizes your legal status, but also because I've seen it happen. Typically, when I see people get into fights in Thailand, you don't see a lot of fair fights.
No,
I mean,
I'm glad you brought that up. Don't think you're tough or better than the Thais. I'm going to tell you, if I've seen, I'll tell you this. This is when I first came to Thailand to go to the university here. I was living on Soi 6 in Bangkok, near Nana Plaza. So I'm walking home one night. Ironically, I had a date. I walked her home, and this foreigner, I don't remember what he was, English or Aussie, I can't remember. But I'm across the street, and this guy was pushing this Thai motorbike guy, and I was gonna run over there. He starts grabbing him. All of a sudden, you see 8, 9 Thais jump out there and jump that guy. Don't think you're tough. Just cause don't look down. Don't go looking for trouble here. Okay?
oh,
Don't do it here.
no.
Don't think you're better than they are. And remember, when you're here, you are a guest in the kingdom of Thailand. We are guests. By their graciousness, we have a visa. We're able to stay here. So keep in mind, this is their country, this is their territory, and to respect that.
Yeah. Also, one thing, Thais have a different definition of politeness in some ways. For example, some Westerners, especially Germans, Dutch, and some Americans are very direct, and Thais are not. And you don't always know what they're thinking. And I can say from experience, times I've taken a lady out, and I'd ask her if she liked the food at a restaurant I took her to. She said yes. Then we did other activities like went, listened to some music. She said she enjoyed herself. Well, lo and behold, she didn't. And how did I find out? Because she told just about all of her friends what an awful time. She couldn't stand the food. And I'm not exactly the nicest person when someone BS's me. So I confronted her and said, yeah, what's the deal? Why did you tell me that you liked it but didn't told everyone else? You didn't. She said, oh, I wanted to be grang jai, which means like, kind of like saying considerate. I'm like, I said, well, why else? So, and she says, I didn't want you to lose face. I'm like, wait, you didn't want me to lose face by telling me directly, but you had no problem with telling everybody else who you knew. I'm like, yeah, how am I not supposed to lose face that way? And she just shrugged. I mean, but there are many stories like mine.
Absolutely.
So,
A lot of times the Thais don't want to hurt your feelings, so they'll hide it sometimes. And
right.
because yes, the losing face is a big deal here, and you gotta. One thing I've had to learn, and look, by nature I can be loud, and sometimes I don't realize it, but the Thais can misinterpret that, and sometimes I have to find myself. Dan just told you a story there. I got a quick one where my condo in Bangkok has a store in the lobby. So one time I got to know the woman the cashier. So one time I came in there, she was on her phone, and I just jokingly said, "Hey, What are you doing? You're supposed to, what about customer service? You know, little firm. She took that the wrong way and got rattled. I had to really smooth it over and apologize to her. And it worked out. She accepted it. But the truth is, even joking around, sometimes you're a little loud. They can misinterpret that. Because I could tell she got rattled. And she was upset. I said, "Oh, I'm just kidding. I'm sorry." And I'm still friends with her to this day. But sometimes even something like that, you have to be careful because they're not confrontational people.
Yeah. Also, we have to take a look at international schools. By the way, that was
Education.
suggested that talk about cost of living. Now, it's one thing to work at an international school and make money, which is good. Another problem, though, but there's a problem. If you have children and you want to send them to international schools, oh, they can be outright expensive, maybe more than what you'd pay in the West. We're talking
Oh,
at least
boatload.
US dollars. I mean, easily. If you wanted to send them to like among the most elite, you're expect to pay no less than 30,000 US dollars per year. Per year
Now,
per.
yeah, education can be very expensive. Education can be extremely expensive. Um, Keep that in mind. And if say, for example, you think you're going to send your child to a Thai school, and look, there are exchange programs. It's been done. It's not impossible. And I was teaching in some of these Thai schools years back. That there was some Americans in there, an exchange program, but keep in mind they speak in Thai. They teach the class in Thai. Unless you're in an English class, the school activities are in Thai. So you got to make
Yeah.
sure that the child can adjust, and also myriads of Thai cultures in that school. What I mean is, they meet for assembly every morning before class, and they do the Thai national anthem, and they wear uniforms. So just keep the cultural perspective in mind and the language barrier.
Oh yeah. Earlier I was mentioning about the weather. Should we tell them about how Thailand can be certain times of the year weather-wise?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. In April and May, if you're planning to come at that time, it'll be lower season, but it will be hot. And I mean hot and humid. For foreigners, yeah. For Thai, even so for Thais. Even Thais who are used to hot weather can barely stand the heat in April and May.
Right.
Air conditioning bills skyrocket. I mean, it's that bad. In fact, one point when I just walked out of my work, I walked maybe 10 meters and I'm already drenching in sweat. I'm
Right.
not exactly, it was
It's
that
like
bad.
the best way I can describe it. It's like Florida.
Hey,
So
yeah,
yeah, but if you go like to Chiang Mai, it's a little cooler.
certain times of year, but in April and May, it's as hot as it is in Bangkok, I think. But also,
And
then there's September and October. Those are the rainiest months. I mean, even July and August are pretty rainy, but September, October, oh,
oh my gosh, yeah, it can be rainy. Sometimes I like the rain though.
me too.
Um,
What I don't having to wade in the water though. The wading, that's floods can happen. Not big floods, but to the point where, yeah, you're at least what, maybe a half a meter high or so on the road.
right, yeah, absolutely. Another thing is when you're talking about education, weather. I mean, once again, that depends what you want. You can the beach life, the rural life on the farm, the mountain life, the city life. There's something here for everybody as far as that goes. So talking about weather, we also have to talk about medical. Medical is cheaper overall than for example, we're Americans, so a lot of times we're going to refer to the U.S. Medical is much cheaper than the United States. However, though, if you don't have a medical insurance, maybe you got to get a surgery, you can still pay a lot of money out of pocket. So you might want to have some money put aside or some kind of medical insurance. I mean, I'm going to tell you, foreigners not paying medical bills is a. I'm not saying all foreigners do it, but one of
No.
the reasons I talked to an immigration official is people weren't paying their bills. So just keep that
Mhm.
in mind. Medical is cheaper overall, okay? It's than a lot of Western countries. But if you have an emergency procedure or something, just keep in mind, have some kind of insurance or savings. And yeah, so keep that in mind. And again, we love Thailand. There's so much more good than bad, but there's also some realities of living here, and that you have from cultural to major differences that you have to factor in as you make this
Yeah.
move.
Yes, and by the way, I must advise whether you are a visitor or an expat, don't get too critical of say politics or do not get involved in politics at all. I
No,
mean,
absolutely not.
not
Don't
only
get either
politics,
protest or nothing.
no, both legally and socially, that's it's bad. It looks bad. And foreigners, when they tell me that they want to join a protest, I ask them, "What's wrong with you? You're not a citizen of this country. You know,
No,
if you think it's so awful and you don't like the way things are, why don't you just leave?" I've said that directly to other foreigners and said, look, if you're going to come to another country and live there, or just visit and criticize, how about you just not visit, or how about you find somewhere else to live? That's what I've had to tell some foreigners. And you can get deported too if you get in enough trouble.
absolutely.
There, there can.
Yes. And to emphasize what Dan is saying there, do not be negative towards the monarchy here. Don't talk
Mm-mm,
about that publicly. And again,
no.
because some foreigners, they get real arrogant and they want to jump in the protest. It's not a good look. And the Thais don't like it. Don't talk about the monarchy, whether you agree with it or not. And let me tell you, and Dan can attest to this, do not break the law here. You don't want to end up in a Thai jail. It's just
No, you do not. I've read enough books about people who did break the law in Thailand, and of course those who say they were framed, and even people who had spent a little time, and they told me about all had said the same thing about the conditions. Oh, you don't trust me. You do not want that. Okay,
um,
personally speaking, I don't want to get locked up anywhere in the world, even in places like Norway or Iceland. But I
of
definitely
course
don't
not.
want it.
Not here, and it's and not here. So keep in mind, okay.
Mhm.
However, Thailand is an incredible place. It,
Yes.
it's again, I can't say it enough. Way more good and bad. It's a wonderful
Easy.
place, but don't think you're just gonna come here and everything's gonna work like that. There is logistical challenges. There's adjustment challenges. Just like
Mhm.
anywhere on the planet, there's no perfect place. But this place is, to me, as close as you can get, in my opinion.
Right. Right. I have to warn them also about public transportation outside of the Bangkok vicinity.
Yes.
Okay, now Bangkok has some of the best transportation options world that I've ever seen. You can
Yes.
do they develop SkyTrain, also known as the BTS, the underground to the MRT. You can travel by motorbike taxi, by tuk-tuks, although I don't recommend that one. You can also take minivans to other parts of Bangkok as well as other provinces. You can take government buses, you can take VIP buses, you can take boats in the thongs and canals, you can take boats down the Chao Phraya, you can even hire private boats, and taxis themselves are quite cheap. So those are all good. But once you get out of Bangkok,
Yeah, I mean, it is true. I mean, like in Pattaya, you still get great. Um, but yeah, in the smaller towns, and you're gonna have to logistically figure it out. It's not impossible. People do it, but just keep
yeah,
that in mind. When you get out of the touristy metropolitan areas, yeah, you gotta figure it out. Some people do motorbikes. Some people actually have cars. Me personally, I'm happy with the transportation. I happen to live in a tourist area. Transportation is just fine for me. But if you
yeah,
want to live in the rural areas or some other parts, then you may have to figure out your transportation. But overall, transportation still is very cheap, starting at 30 baht. That's 83 cents. So, car's cheap, and there's plenty of buses that will take you around. Um, even with Bangkok itself, it's a central hub. So if you want to even travel to local Southeast Asian countries, flights are cheap. They're even
yeah.
having a train from Bangkok to the capital, Laos.
Oh,
So
It eventually will extend all the way into I think Yunnan province in China,
Right.
because there's
Yes.
a direct train from Vientiane, Lao to China, and I think that's eventually going to all connect. And from in fact, you could fly directly to parts of China from even Chiang Mai. Oh, they're to Europe, Phuket. So there's so many options, and the flights are quite cheap in comparison to Western prices. And I'm thinking, also, we should warn certain tourists. When you first get there, if taxi drivers or tuk-tuk drivers are hustling you, asking you to, if you want to go to a go-go bar, offering you drugs or whatever, or go to a club or go to a shop, don't go. It's a setup, but you can say no. And to my surprise, they take no for an answer a lot easier than some other countries do.
Yeah.
I mean, when I walk down the streets and they think I'm a tourist because of what I look like, they try to hustle me and say, "Hey, you, come on, want this?" I just kind of brush them off, say no, like this, and they leave me alone.
Yeah. It's look, and the other thing with here in Thailand is
Mm-hmm.
Buddhism is a prevalent part of this culture. When I was teaching in the schools again, Buddhism was weaved in the schools. They took it serious. The monks would come pray over the school. You can walk around Bangkok and Pattaya and other. You'll see shrines all about the city. You'll see monks walking around. Uh, Buddhism is of Thai culture here.
Sure is.
So, and another thing is, do not make fun of their. Don't be disrespectful. That's another no-no.
I
So
mean, we oh, you shouldn't make fun of anyone's religion. No, but they Thais take that very seriously,
yes,
and
and don't and the currency. Don't abuse the currency with the king on it. And I won't say the race on the air, but it was an issue a few years ago with a certain race that they were coming to the country, defecating the statues and just not being respectful. And the
yeah,
Thai
desecrating.
government the
Oh,
Thai government had to tell them, and the other government said, "Hey, told their citizens, hey, be respectful." So look,
oh yeah,
just
oh
remember,
yeah. I'll add to that because, in fact, back in the 90s, and I will say the nationality of this one, he was an American missionary. He went over there to try to preach the gospel. Well, what does he do? He climbed on a statue and this was before digital cameras. Then he brought his roll of film at the time to a film developer. Well, that film developer was not very amused. Instead, you know what he did? He leaked it out to the press, and that American missionary was arrested for his act of ridicule of the Buddha statue.
and that being said, there are people that like to go to church, and Thailand's very tolerant. You have freedom to worship here. There's tons of Christian churches in Pattaya and in Bangkok. You'll be surprised all around Thailand. There's mosques. There's Hindu.
There's
There's even some Hindu.
temple.
Yeah.
Oh,
So you can do that here if you want. You can worship here. You're free. The Thais are very tolerant. So, but there's certain things they want you to respect about their culture. And again, remember, this is their country. It's not yours. It's not mine. It's
yeah,
theirs. And you are a guest, and I am a guest of the kingdom. Okay,
we
and I
are.
like being here. So there's certain things. If they tell me, Joe, we don't want you protesting in our politics, guess what? No problem. I'm not
And
going to
I
talk
wouldn't.
about monarchy. I'm not going to do
And I
stuff like
wouldn't
that.
do it any. I wouldn't do such a thing anyways. Even you don't have to tell me.
Right, exactly. But the point is, I'm emphasizing this point because there's always a few of those foreigners that they have to open their mouth about. They think that they got to get involved in some protests, and it's not a large group. It's not a lot, but sometimes even one or two can put the spotlight on us. So
Look,
just keep that in mind.
yeah, I say if you go to Thailand as a foreigner, do your best to be respectful. Do your best to stay out of internal and keep your head low. When problems arise, keep your head low and stay out of it. It is not. And I have that advice: be respectful of the law.
All right. Yes, just be respectful. That's all. And I'm not trying to talk down anyone. I just want you to come here and have a good time and be happy. I just don't want to see anyone get in trouble if they don't have to. I don't want to see to see that. So, uh, anything else, Dan? Is there anything else?
No, I think that's all I have to say for today. But there's a lot more I will have to say in the future, and mostly
Yeah,
positive.
look, of course. And even today is really nothing bad. It's about just foreigners adjusting. I just don't. We want in this channel is we want to be as honest as we can possibly be with you, that to help you, because we believe it or not care about you. We want to be we want you to come to Thailand or wherever you want to live in the world and be happy. But just keep in mind there's adjustment periods, there's culture shock, and there adjusting to the culture, adjusting to the way of life, and you can do that. You'll have a great life here. All right.
You
With
will.
that being said, anything else, Dan?
That's that's it for me for today. But thank you for
Oh,
watching. And again, take your independent mind and blaze.